William Haggas joining me live from Newmarket. Morning, William.
Morning, Nick.
Very kind of you to join us on the programme. I'm sure you were listening to Brant Dunshay with interest. Did it make you feel buoyant?
I think we've got to hold our nerve now, Nick. It's a bit of a trying time, as Dave says. We're getting close, and we need to race. Brant looks absolutely knackered. I haven't seen him for a bit. I've spoken to him a lot, and so let's just hope that his wishes come to fruition and we can get racing.
He was quite clear that the messages he'd received were that government was now seeing racing in a different way to how it was viewing other sports, which, if Oliver Dowden's comments in the middle of the week were anything to go by, is a pretty reassuring comment from Brant, because if it weren't the case, then I think we'd have no chance.
Yeah, well, let's not speculate. Let's just hope. The government told us that June the 1st some sports could start, and we want to be on the forefront of that. So let's just hope.
What's the mood like in Newmarket at the moment?
A little bit of anxiety, but a lot of excitement. We had the Royal Ascot programme released this week, and I think that's been universally well received. And I just think everyone has been waiting a long time for this moment, and we're getting halfway through our season, unfortunately, and we haven't started yet.
Will you have horses ready for the Guineas if they take place at the back end of next week?
I'll have horses ready for the meeting. Whether I've got one ready for the Guineas, I don't know.
But that's a sort of surreal sign of the time we're in. We are but 13 days away, potentially, from that classic. And the idea that you genuinely or otherwise do not know the identity of a horse you could run in that race is quite bizarre.
Truth be told, Nick, I don't think I've got one. Ascot's very close, and these are really bizarre and strange circumstances, and we're ready to go, and we don't want any more delay because we have horses in some decent races coming up that need to race.
What would be your first major strike, if you like? What would be the first significant big name horse you'd be looking to running after resumption?
First major strike, that's a laugh. My first sort of bullet could well be a filly. I haven't spoken to Mrs. Choi yet, but I'm looking at running a filly called Born with Pride, who won the Montrose first time in the classic trial at Kempton.
Born with Pride, as you say, won the Montrose, and it was pretty soft ground that day. She was a big price. Did she surprise you or not?
Look, she's always shown a bit at home. She's a very well-bred filly and a strong galloper. Lots of stamina on the downside, and she looked good that day. But we had there were two divisions of a 7-furlong maiden that day, and I would have run her in one of those. But we had 3 in each division, so we plumped. We thought she was possibly the one that would enjoy a mile more than the others, so she ran in the Montrose.
You say she's from a very good family. She is from a very good family. She's related to Shreo, won a Group 1 Down Under, and Raheen House. Neither of those horses was particularly straightforward. Is she quite straightforward?
Pretty good, yeah. She did nothing wrong that day. Yeah, she's... They weren't particularly difficult, and we have the 3-year-old, she's now 4, called Sea of Faith. She's pretty straightforward, so they're just good stayers. Sadly, they don't lack much of a turn of foot, but they gallop well and they try hard.
I've taken to Mark Howard's excellent book, Ahead on the Flat, because at some point early in the season, Mark must come down and he seems to get every good nugget out of you, and almost half of his top 40 prospects come from your stable, I think. But I was very struck by your comments about Al Azi, because the first line is, I think he could be the best we have got and is a possible Derby horse. So no pressure on Al Azi then. How's he doing?
You know, remarkably, when you make a stupid remark like that in February, usually you're regretting it from March onwards. But he's still a nice horse, Nick. And I think 7 on soft ground is about the worst thing for him. I think he wants 1.25 miles, probably 1.5 miles. And I think when we get him over that sort of distance, he might improve. But he needs to improve about 2 stone on what he did that day at Newmarket.
Just looking through the list of horses you've got, it's a wonderfully deep group, potentially. I know you say these times are anxious, but it's very exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it's rather ironic. I mean, don't forget, Nick, I started training when there was no all-weather racing in the winter, and the best time to have a party was on the Monday before Doncaster, when every single trainer in the town was smiling, happy, and greatly looking forward to what was happening. And it's the same now. We appear to have a very deep squad of horses, and hopefully they'll go and prove that. It's a shame we haven't been able to start, but there's plenty of season to go, and I hope they can prove that.
And you are definitely the only multiple Group 1 winning trainer during the lockdown, because you struck in Australia and you struck big. Adabe has come back, hasn't he? And the other horse that you were running in Australia has stayed down under, is that right?
Yeah, we sold half of Young Rascal to OTI Racing, Terry Henderson. And Adabe came back. We managed to get out, thank God. And he's in good form. And if we had a few thunderstorms at Ascot, he might go for the Prince of Wales. The problem is that I spoke to one of my owners who is a grown-up farmer, and I asked him. He spends a lot of money studying weather, or getting somebody to study weather. And I asked him if we were going to get rain for Ascot, and he said the next appreciable rain will be in September.
Oh, my word. Well, I suppose it'll keep a lot of our spirits up, but if you've got a soft ground horse, you're in trouble.
By the sound of it, yeah. He said wheat prices are going up daily, and that is the sign that it's going to be a drought.
You mentioned Royal Ascot. It leads me neatly on. You are, and have been for quite some time, a member of the flat race pattern subcommittee that have been working overtime to put all these bits and pieces together. And we all know it's no easy task. Are you quite happy with the way the Ascot programme looks now, with the consolation races, 2-year-old races, some move to the back end, and various bits of moving and shaking to try and accommodate everybody?
Very, Nick. That committee has received, I think the work has been done by Ruth Quinn and her team, with our chairman, Lydia Hislop, and obviously with Nick Smith from Ascot. And they came up with something that I think was unanimously approved in the committee.
The 2-year-old races have been subject to a slight change now, so everyone gets a nomination for a horse that they think is Royal Ascot worthy. So that horse could potentially escape the ballot in the first week. Do you think that tweak is a good one?
Oh, excellent, Nick. I mean, Ascot asked us to try. Didn't ask us, asked the authority to try and get the best possible fields for the races at Ascot. And somebody used their brains at the BHA and worked out who were the 2-year-old type trainers who are likely to get a horse there. And let's hope they get there. But I'm sure anyone who feels they've got a 2-year-old of some ability that they'd like to see out before Ascot, just in case, then I'm sure if they rang the BHA, they could be guaranteed a run in the first 8 days of the season.
And again, we don't know because we've never been in this situation before. But there's the possibility that some of these early races could be insanely good.
I think there's every likelihood that'll happen.
And from your perspective, William, and looking after a huge workforce, how have you found the last 2 or 3 months in terms of keeping people's spirits up, keeping people paid, keeping horses going, not doing too much but doing just enough? How have you found the logistics of it all?
I would say we've been remarkably lucky. Obviously, we've done all the things that we were asked to do, and we've been exercising in pairs for the majority of the time when possible. And, the staff have been fantastic, but they always are. We furloughed one person. Our secretary wanted to be with her parents, which is absolutely fine. And one of our girls had lost a spleen in a fall a few years ago, and she had to have 3 months off, government instructions. But otherwise, we've all carried on, and I don't suppose I'm making any money, but Adabe helped.
And has everyone remained healthy, most crucially, as we approach a period where the BHA will be wanting to know that?
Yes, we did have one girl in the 2-year-old yard who tested positive, and it was quite a bizarre one, really. Her next-door neighbour died of COVID-19, and she was tested on instruction of the NHS and was positive, but her husband and children weren't. And her subsequent test, she never came back to work, but her subsequent test is negative, thankfully for her. And the tests we took here, all the people were negative.
So you've done your own private testing of a bunch of your staff?
I can't. They have done it themselves, some under instruction from the NHS. But it's not a problem for me to pay for it. I'm delighted to.
Yeah.
But it's not compulsory. It's optional. But we don't want anyone here who looks remotely ill or feels remotely ill, and we've always been like that.
William, I'm sure you've had a chance to look through this document that I was discussing with Brandt earlier. From your point of view, from a logistics point of view, what are going to be the biggest challenges here?
I don't know, really, Nick. I hope that this is very much something which will not be quite as relevant as the weeks go on. I'm sure it won't. When I first opened it at 33 pages, I thought, crikey. But it's actually all common sense, and it's exactly what the government have been saying for a long time. So we will manage. We'll have to adjust a few things. And I don't think, for example, it's unlikely we will go to somewhere like Newcastle because it's a long day. It's a long day if we drive up there, race and drive back.
So do you think that will significantly impact trainers' running plans, that they won't be doing so many long journeys? Because it's become the norm, we've seen, for Newmarket trainers to travel to all points of the country as the country has shrunk further and further down the years.
Well, certainly while there's no overnight stables that are open, so it's day trips only. So it's going to be difficult for Newmarket and difficult for all southern-based trainers to go there. And I think it just makes sense. We just got to be sensible for the first period, and hopefully then after Ascot, things will ease, the country will get back to relative normality, and we can get on with our business. But if you watch racing in Hong Kong, they're still wearing masks today, and I think they had 3,000 people there today, which they said was the biggest crowd they've had since the COVID-19 happened.
Which augurs well for us further down the line, you would hope. During this process, clearly tensions have run high. It's a very difficult time for everybody, and they're bound to. Do you sense a more collaborative spirit now in the racing industry?
There was immense frustration from some of my friends who train, and I think unfortunately that was voiced through the publicly. But I think, the view very much is now, come on, let's all work together to get this, to make this happen. And I've spoken to lots of people over the course of the past month, and I think, we are just ready to go. Let's not fight. Let's get on with it, and see what happens.
And I must ask you about your personal lockdown experience, if you like. Have you found it fairly straightforward to not be travelling, to occupy the same house as others for a long period of time?
Yeah, well, I work with my wife all the time, so it's nothing new for us. I haven't spent as much money as I would have done, which is great. I haven't been out at all. So, I'm ready for a bit of action, really. But look, I think it's time we all moved on a bit and got on with our lives. The country's nearly ground to a halt, and I read some articles in the paper, and most people are now thinking that it's time we got on with it, and I agree.
And do you think this represents something of an opportunity for racing if racing does beat the other elite sports to start, if you like?
Well, it would have been if we'd started the same time as France and Germany, but that's not happened. Yes, we're going to get a jump on them. And I don't know how long that will last, but the sooner we get going, the sooner people get investing in betting, and that's unfortunately part of it for us. We need to generate some income somewhere, and the betting is the way to do it.
William, thanks very much for your time this morning. Good luck for the rest of the season, and hopefully we'll be chatting to you in person before too long.
Yeah, I hope so too.
William Haggas, Newmarket trainer.